Hi everyone, welcome to BlackHearts Amazon and Vagabond. We'll be continuing our reading of the book, and we're going to chapter 1 today. Probably we only have about 2 pages out of chapter 1 today. It's a much longer chapter than the prologue. The prologue was about 4 pages long, but we'll probably do only max 3 pages out of chapter 1 today. So let's start. Chapter 1, Ishaga, 1851. Ige sobbed to herself as she lay across her captor's shoulders like a sack of rice, bobbing up and down by the continuous motion of the march. Her captor was one in a sea of many, but he walked as one, silent in the first march they were now in. They had recently been in a sore battle and they had lost, but then they would return. They would lick their wounds and escape with what little captives they had made. The battle had taken place at Ishaga, her hometown, only a few hours before, and her captor smelt of burnt gunpowder, as did the other soldiers. Her town had been the center of a brutal battle fought between the Fon, her captors, and the Egba from Abeokuta. It all began about 3 or 4 days earlier. Bami, that was what she called her father, had come running into the house where Ige and her grandmother lived as part of a communal compound. Her grandfather was the head of the family compound, made up of a few houses in which lived her uncles and their families, and Ige had been living with them since her mother had died a few years ago. She was the sixth child. His wife had borne him before she passed away, giving birth to the seventh, who had not survived either. Her father had not yet remarried, but her brothers and sisters had ended up being distributed among her uncles, who looked after them as their own children. Her father was a trader as well as a hunter, and his forays into the nearby forests often took him away from home for prolonged periods of time. Even then, when he was around, most of his time was spent on his farms or at the markets in nearby towns. Whatever profits he made selling venison, foodstuffs, and whatever he made, he spent on his children, usually giving to his mother and brothers' wives for his children. Shekosi, his mother asked in Yoruba, "Where are you off to in such a hurry, Ladipo?" He stopped for a minute as he picked up a Dane gun to face his mother. "Mommy, the Fawn are at the gates of the town." "Are they attacking?" she interrupted. "No, Mommy, they are not. They are going to attack Abeokuta. Oba Koko is talking with their king and his generals. He is trying to delay while I go to Abeokuta to warn them. I will go through the Onaola gate and should be there by nightfall. I know a lot of hidden ways they do not, and the best place to cross the Ogun River. He will try to delay them by getting them to cross the river at its fullest. It should be quite full after the last rains." He finished attaching his weapons and turned around to face his mother. Ige looked at her father as he made to prostrate before his mother before taking off on his assignment. He was dressed in a sleeveless vest with no collar, called a togo, and a tight-legged pair of trousers called kafo, which extended as far as his ankles. Both were made of woven cloth and were of a dark crimson color. On his head was a cap or filabeti, whose edges covered his ears. It was shaped like the sector of a circle, the pointed end coming over his ears, while the top extended down to his neck. He had a scabbard for his jackknife attached to his left forearm, while a much longer one for his sword was attached to his waist. He also had multiple pouches of gunpowder wrapped in waterproof oilskin. He held his Dane gun, an efficient and well-oiled flintlock, decorated with various charms and cowries for protection, in his right hand as he stood. Ifa Shaw, his mother prayed as he made for the entrance of her hut. He was almost there when he stopped in mid-stride and turned to face his daughter. He came back to her and put a hand on her head, rubbing it fondly, before he turned and ran out of the house. She went to the entrance of the house and watched as her father took off at a run towards the eastward gate of their small town. Most, if not all, towns, both great and small, usually had walls around them but permitted entry through gates that were always manned and could be shut if necessary. He was soon lost from sight. But it was a few minutes before she turned away from the entrance and returned to her grandmother. She sat at her grandmother's feet. "Don't worry, Ige, your father will soon return," her grandmother said. For a moment, Ige said nothing, as her grandmother shelled melon seeds in preparation for the next meal. Then Ige broke into a song, humming as she thought about her father's journey. She had been to Abeokuta once, and that was last year after she had begged her father many times to take her. He had obliged her, and they had made the journey in a caravan of traders eastward along one of the major roads that led there. She had hardly been able to walk more than a kilometer or two on the dusty road before it became quite obvious to her father that she would never make the 20 kilometers or more the journey would take. He had lifted her onto his shoulders and told her he would one day show her a shorter route. He said that route was known mainly to hunters because it traversed the forest, but that it was definitely shorter. It was half a day's journey on foot, but the journey through the main road had taken them about a day and a half, and she had hardly walked. She had been shouldered most of the journey by her father, who had only put her down when they had come to a smaller town where they spent the night. The next morning they had arrived at Abeokuta and entered through the main gate to Aru, pausing only for a moment when her father remarked about the northwest walls, which were in a state of disrepair. They had spent the day at the market, where her father had sold some foodstuffs as well as some dried venison he had caught a day before they set out. The market day had been a good one for her father, as he had sold all the dry venison he had come with a little after midday. Feeling quite generous, he had sent her across the road to one of the stalls with a few cowries to buy herself a small wrapper. He had watched as she haggled with the store owner until they had agreed on a price for an indigo-colored woven wrapper. She had come running to her father, holding her price in both hands. He inquired about the price, and satisfied, he had helped her undo the wrap she was wearing and put on the new one. She had knelt and bowed her head, thanking her father for his gift while he smiled. They had set out with their caravan for Ishaga the next morning. That was 6 months ago. Alright, so that's about 3 or 4 pages of chapter 1. And yeah, that starts with Ige, our female protagonist. And yeah, well, you can read more. Get the book, get the hard copy or get the soft copy. As usual, I'll put the links to the books down in the description, the video description, and yeah, you can read up and let me have your thoughts on this bit I've read, and if you've been reading too, let me have your thoughts on the novel in general. And I'll see you next week. Thanks.